Aloha. It is time to take a look at more profound moments in amazing travels taken by interesting people. Right after college, I got to take a trip with today's guest. It was kind of a spontaneous trip. A mutual friend said there's airfare to Europe for 99 bucks. People Express, San Francisco to Brussels. Today's guest and I went, and we went to 6 countries in 6 days, and I think we slept 16 hours the whole trip. It was a great adventure, but it's not the kind of travel that we do now, or even a little after that. We started changing our travel habits to dive into cultures a little more. Today's guest is Brian Rayl, and a few years after that trip, he took a little over 3 years to cross all 6 continents. He did it on bike and by hiking and hitchhiking and kayaking. And Brian, let me say welcome and why.
Oh, thanks, John. Yeah, the why question is really just comes down to curiosity and life, at least as I see it, is a limited time offer. And with that limited time, I wanted to go out and see things that were really different and explore as much as I could. And that's kind of the incubator for this trip.
I put a map up here, and we can refer to it a little here and there. It's pretty much got all the different segments combined, and I see you've put a few light bulbs on here, which refer to those profound moments that we're going to highlight. So if you hang in there for just a second, I am going to pull up a little screen here, and we're going to go ahead and have you start talking about the first of 3 of the most profound moments on this trip. And I'm going to put them in the category and then let you run with it. All of what you call expectation management.
Right. Yeah. Well, expectation management is a term that I kind of came up with to explain the link between how we experience things and what we expect to happen to begin with. And traveling to other places where other peoples have other belief systems and parts of different cultural influences, there are some staggering differences in expectation management. And the first one that really knocked me sideways was in Delhi, the city center of Delhi, India. And for those of you that are acquainted with it, you know that the street scene includes rickshaws and pedestrians and livestock and ox carts and what we'd say a managed level of some sort of managed chaos. And the thing that really is striking is just how cooperative everyone is in the face of that chaos. And the aha moment that first came to me was I was crossing the street, and in front of me was a guy wearing sandals who was just waiting for an ox cart full of bricks to pass him by, and the ox suddenly turned, and the fully loaded cart of bricks ran over his foot. And I was fully expecting him to say the equivalent of "watch where you're going," or some hand gesture, or a red face, or something to indicate that he was somehow frustrated and disappointed, and it never happened. He just did nothing. And I thought, okay, that's not what I'm like.
Yeah, different world, different experience. Let me jump to another one here. I think this is Uganda, and tell me about the light bulb that went off at your experience here.
Yeah, this is kind of the way a lot of Africans get around in Uganda. And anyway, we were in that country on bicycles and on a particularly rutted, dusty, and just a challenging road to make any headway. And there was a bus that was reportedly going to stop in this at they reluctantly call it a bus stop because it's just basically a grassy field next to a road. But there were a lot of people standing there waiting, and we just said, "Well, when's the next bus going to come?" And we said, "Oh, probably in an hour." And then that turned into, well, probably in a couple hours. And then it turned into, well, probably tonight. And then after it started getting dark and we chose another method of transportation, the last answer was, well, it'll probably come tomorrow. And this is just shows you what option number two is for people who didn't when the bus doesn't come. And really, the striking moment about that related to expectation management is while I was thinking how um, how like basically being irritated that the bus wasn't coming, everyone else at the bus stop was playing their boombox and jumping around and dancing and enjoying themselves. And it really just comes down to the fact that they don't really expect the bus to come. So that's quite an advantage for being happy to never expect things to really happen as they're supposed to.
Good way to look at it. And you gave me another example. We're going to jump now to Ayers Rock in the middle of Australia.
Yeah, this was kind of the granddaddy of expectation moment or expectation management moments, and it involved going out to see Ayers Rock, and it's on a lot of tourist itinerary because it is a red rock in the middle of a red desert, and people like to get a picture of the red rock in the red desert on a red sunset uh, during a red sunset, and people fly there, take an excursion flight halfway across Australia, and this rock is basically in the middle of the continent. There's not a lot of other things around it. So people make a pretty serious commitment in their itinerary to get there for that event. And the day we arrived, storm clouds were brewing, and it just turns out that right at sunset, at the time that the perfect lighting hits the rock, there was no lighting because there was a downpour, and it not just a little rain, but a complete the skies opened up with just torrential rains, and uh, the the tourists got back on their buses, and I don't know where they went, but we stuck around, and after about 15 minutes, the rain stopped and all the water came pouring off the rock. And you can see some of these chasms that for places where the water pours off and cascades down. And it was actually a dramatic moment and actually a scarce event that is really, really dramatic experience. So that was part of it, is just the expecting something and then something entirely, even probably more spectacular, happened in its place, and the folks that were expecting that didn't experience that. But the part that really grabbed me was on the way back from Ayers Rock to a campsite, we passed a station wagon that had somehow worked its way off the road and crashed into some bushes, and it was disabled, and it was full of Aboriginal people that were celebrating around a fire and dancing and singing. And I have no idea what they were celebrating, but it was just such a just a such a contrast of people that have everything that were miserable, and people who have very little that were extraordinarily happy.
And no doubt you experience things like this throughout your trip, but those are a couple fabulous ones. I want to jump to a couple pictures of how you got around. Clearly, bike was your number one way. You called it the the sweet spot, and I'd love to hear you explain that a little bit, and then we'll go into a couple of the other modes of transportation you use to work your way across these six continents.
Yeah. Um, well, this is a shadow picture, obviously, of a bicycle, and a lot of the travel in the especially near the equator were places that were pretty hot, and so a lot of the travel was is on bikes was early morning or late evening, and that's when you get shadows like that against the side a road embankment. But you probably notice also from this bike, it's got cargo on it, but not like a regular bicycle with panniers and the kind of things that people who that touring on a bike is what they do all the time. These are basically our backpacks strapped to the bike rack. That's what that enabled stopping someplace and then switching to backpacking mode, or going to hopping onto a bus in a monotonous section, or in the back of a cargo truck. So anyway, that's the sweet spot, is that being able to go multimodal with transportation from one kind to the other, and still be able to control your own schedule.
Just from the quick look at this, you had a few flats along the way.
A few flats, and one of the another kind of a little bit of a light bulb is that moment is that when you travel to a country with the desire to see people that aren't accustomed to seeing tourists and travelers, one of the consequences is you get to see them being novel, but they also get to see you as a novelty. So things like this, where stopping to change a flat tire attracted large crowds, and this actually was in Nepal.
And one more here, one more bike shot for you. Got to tell me what's going on in this one.
This is down in Brazil, and I think that's an anaconda snake. I was always hoping I could see an anaconda while in South America, and I'm now seeing how large they are. I'm glad this one was dead.
Oh, okay. You're not going to tell me you ran over it.
No, I didn't.
All
But
right. You did a lot of kayaking. Is that your old Dodge Dart there carrying the yak?
it's a Plymouth Valiant, which is pretty close. And yeah, it's the double kayak that went up to Alaska, and that was the primary mode of travel through to go from Juneau to Glacier Bay on a stretch of the Yukon River, and also to a bear sanctuary on Admiralty Island. And kind of like the bicycle, the kayak allows you to get very intimate with your surroundings and get right up close and camp right where the scenery is spectacular. So highly recommend it for people that want to chart their own course.
Right on. Now, I know you did a lot of hitchhiking too, and a lot of it in trucks. I don't know if this is one of the vehicles you were in, but go ahead and tell me what I'm looking at here, and a little about your hitchhiking experiences.
Yeah, this is in Bolivia, in western Bolivia, and that truck's just one of the cargo trucks that goes up and down the Pan American Highway of South America. And we weren't on this particular truck, but there were long hauls of distance in Australia and South America, with either featureless landscapes, or there was times we had to move on to get to another part of the world and be there at the right time of the year. So long hauls and trucks like this is part of the formula for doing that.
Gave me a lot of great pictures to look through, and I couldn't resist throwing a couple more. So if you don't mind, I popped a couple in here. I don't know if you know which ones are going to come up. You could just give me a little bit of what I'm seeing in the next couple pictures.
Sure. Yeah, this is a golden temple in the, it's a Sikh temple in Western India, and it's a whole temple complex actually, and they welcome foreigners to stay there. And I think we were in a room very close to this exact spot, and this is the scenery that goes by on a minute by minute basis. So that's yeah, it's a nice scene. Yeah, and one of the striking things about South America, this also is in Bolivia, is the formality that of clothing, especially for the women of South America. And this was a soccer match. I don't know the names of the teams, but they're uh, they're out there playing soccer.
Love it. I know you had a few injuries here and there. Did you need to go to the dentist at all?
No, I didn't. Uh, this is in Kashgar, which is really an otherworldly place. It's on the old Silk Road in Western China, which is where the Uyghur people live. And it's kind of a crossroads where Arabic and Chinese and English are the three spoken languages. And so a lot of their advertisements, they have to rely on pictures to tell the story. So that's,
How
that's the
about one
story.
more story with you in the picture here?
This is, yeah, a guy that they had a kind of an open air market with the group of hair cutters and guys, yeah, making me look good.
Carry that beard most of the trip, did you?
Actually, I think that might have been the end of it right there. I might have come back, but yeah, I think yeah, that was probably the best haircut I've ever had in Western China.
Right on. Well, simply amazing what you got to see, what they got you to learn, to experience. Um, Looking back on it now, a lot of what you went through in those couple of years truly had an effect on the way you've chosen to live today, the way you raised your kids, the place you put your home. Just tell me a little about overall how what you took from those years on the road and how they apply to your life now.
Well, I think one of the big ones is just seeing, especially how the people in India live and how they're unflappable, or it appears that way. I mean, I'm sure they get upset about something at some time, but they really are skillful about navigating through life's ups and downs and maintaining a realistic view of the way things happen. And so from that, I have to say, being unflappable is one of my life goals, and it probably is inspired by that. And then probably secondly, just the element of being welcoming. We were traveling all around the planet, and we were welcomed everywhere. And so I kind of feel it's a good idea to be welcoming anyway, but I feel even more obligated to do so because of the experiences that
Brian,
we had.
as
And
you're talking, I'm throwing up a couple different pictures that just seem to be appropriate here as you talk about just perspective on life. Um, so if you want to add a couple words, trying to parallel to what you were saying with a couple of the pictures.
sure, yeah, the just just things about. I mean, that's if you're the main takeaway from international travel, especially to third world countries, is it's like a daily dose of perspective. Every place you go, and things that you think are hard really aren't when it comes to what a lot of people are doing elsewhere in the world on a daily basis. And so yeah, it's yeah, that daily dose of perspective is the takeaway that just about anybody will have from an international excursion like this.
This has been great. I know we could talk much longer. I do hope we get to do it in person again soon. Let's hope the world gets healthy and we can find some exotic place to go explore again soon. Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Looking forward to the next episode.
Right on. And thank you for bringing that up. The next episode will be a couple that went on a couple dates, and then they decided to walk from Florida to California together. And it took 9 months, and they had their share of fair adventures. So it's John DeLeva saying aloha. Thank you, Brian Rayl. And we'll see you again next week.